So I picked up Final Fantasy 15 about 3 weeks ago, I think, and I recently finished my second playthrough of the game, and it just tore me apart. And and I fell in love with the characters, in love with the world, and I just loved everything about it. It was recommended to me by one of my friends who told me all about the game, and this was my first Final Fantasy game, so I didn't really know anything about the world or the characters or the previous games. I've always heard about Final Fantasy and seen some of the trailers, and it just looks so beautiful, and I always wanted to play it, but I wasn't sure if it was my type of game. But my friend kind of convinced me and showed me pictures of Ignis, and I was like, okay, sweet, I'm playing that game. So this will have spoilers in it in case you haven't played the game and you want to, because I'll be talking about my experience playing the game. So yeah, I thought I'd just mention that. But this game kind of like broke me and also just made me really happy. Like at the end of the game, I just had tears running down my face. This is like the first time. This is my first Final Fantasy game, my first playthrough. So usually when I play games, it kind of takes me 3 playthroughs to get really into the characters, to get really into the world. But this was my first playthrough, and it just felt like a long journey. And like I followed these 4 characters, and I just loved them. They were like my babies, and I don't know, it just surprised me, the ending, and just how sad it was. And I don't know, I just really got into it and I really enjoyed the experience, so I thought I'd talk a bit about it. So big thanks to Carla for introducing me to this game, because it has ruined me, and I thank you so much for that. For me, I think though the best kind of games are the ones that leave you with a broken heart or at least just feeling something. Those are my favorite types of games, so this was obviously perfect for me. So I came into this game obviously not knowing anything about the world or the characters or the setting of the game, which is probably my favorite thing about playing new games, I guess. Like we all have our favorite games that we play, and usually they have sequels, so we kind of already know the characters or the lore or like the theme of the game. But when you play like new games that you never played before, you kind of have to learn about the game, and you have to build relationships with the characters, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So that's my favorite thing about playing new games, and it really gets me into the game. And if a game can do that for me, then it's a great game for me. So the setting of the game, forgive me if I'm wrong about anything. Even though I've played the game 2 times, I'm not so confident in knowing the world of Final Fantasy. But the setting is you're in the world of Eos, and the Empire, Niflheim, has been fighting for ages with Insomnia, where King Regis sits on the throne in the Crown City, and they have like a wall around them, a barrier, so the Empire can't really invade the Crown City. But the Emperor comes and sets up kind of a treaty where it's like for peace or something, but it's a trap, and they really just wanted to invade the city. But King Regis sends his son Noctis to go marry Luna, and then so Noctis leaves, and then everything obviously gets worse, and King Regis is killed, and they take over Insomnia. But you're sent out into the world with your 3 friends, and the opening scene is freaking so beautiful. The song choice, it's so memorable, and it just gives me feels straight away. I thought that was a beautiful scene. Really simple, because you're just like pushing the car, but it just sets up the relationship of these 4 friends and their different personalities. And yeah, I just thought the song was really beautiful that they chose, and the opening scene was really great, and also it set up a lot of feels for the end of the game. So you play as Noctis, who I think is about 20 years old, and I really enjoy playing as Noctis. He kind of reminded me of Sasuke from Naruto, and Sasuke was my favorite character in Crush, so I'm okay with that. But it took a while to get really to get a feel for the character, because he does have this like I don't care, I don't want to be king type of attitude, which was actually really fun because I just enjoyed his like reactions to things and it made me laugh. But then at the end of the game, you kind of see him taking things more serious and seeing the consequences of what's happening and what's he's like in charge of, I guess. And he has to take on these responsibilities, and his friends obviously being there for him and constantly reminding him of what his duties are. And then you see him at the end of the game growing up 10 years later, and he is kind of more into the king role, I guess. And he, I don't know, it's just really emotional to see him like ready to make that sacrifice, ready to be the king he was meant to be, I guess. And I don't know, it just made me really emotional, and I cried a lot. But I thought his character was beautifully written, and I really enjoyed like the journey of Noctis and seeing him from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And it kind of feels like, I don't know, he's grown so much, and it's really cool that you're playing that character. Also, I have to mention at the end of the game, he looks so damn fine. He looks gorgeous. The cinematics they're just so beautiful, and the hair, and they all look amazing. So I had to add that because he looks so gorgeous. Gladio is Noctis's I see him as like the dad of the group, and he was probably the least one. Kind of, it took the longest to kind of really feel for the character and what he's been through and learn more about him. But I really liked the way he told Noctis off all the time, like on the train and things like that. It was just great to see him going at him like that, and him being the one to stand up. So I really like Gladio, and I really enjoyed his DLC as well. As soon as I finished the game, I of course went and played and watched everything else that had to do with the game, because I wanted to know more and more about it. So a character that I really felt close to, I guess, which surprised me, because I asked my friend, I'm like, who do you think that I'll like the best in the game? And she told me Ignis, and she's kind of right. But Prompto really surprised me, especially with his backstory. It actually made me cry playing the DLC and kind of finding out where he came from, and also just like how he grew up. And I kind of really related to that. And so obviously it just made me fall in love with him, and I kind of understood his loneliness and wanting to make friends and feeling kind of like a loser, I guess. I was exactly like that. So I don't know, his character just speaks to me, and just seeing him kind of be this like joker, and you see him having this confidence, but underneath it all, he's been through so much, but still he puts on this smile and kind of brings like the team to life and makes jokes and makes them all laugh, and like he's an important part of the team. So I really enjoyed Prompto's character, and his DLC was also really beautiful, and I think that made me cry as well. I get really emotional in games. But let's move on to the character which I totally didn't know that I was going to fall in love with, which is Ignis. So I was asking my friend Carla, I was like, oh, what character do you think I like? And she told me Ignis, and she showed me him. And I was like, oh yeah, he looks really, really hot. What does he do? And things like that. But I wasn't sure if he would kind of be my favorite character or the character I would feel closest to, because you don't know. But his storyline is so sad, and I don't think I've ever like I don't, it's not raged, but I just went crazy during this the quest where you have to find one of the royal arms, and you go down the elevator, and you have to choose whether to bring him or not. That was probably one of like the craziest moments I've ever played a game, because I was like, what the hell do I do? And during the whole quest, I felt so bad. So I just started at in Altissa. Altissa, is that how you say it? So Noctis wakes up after fighting the god. I think it's God. Leviathan? Oh my god, I can't say that, but you probably know who I'm talking about if you played the game. So he wakes up on the bed, and I didn't know. And then you saw Ignis, and oh god, it was so terrible. So he like stands up, and you see him with a cane, and he's lost his eyesight, and I was just heartbroken. I was like, what? I didn't care about anything else. I was like, no, what's going on? What? And just like you see him stumbling and Prompto having to help him up, I was just, I can't describe it. I felt so bad, and that really got to me for some weird reason. And then you just seeing him walk away and them having to help him up all the time, I felt so bad. And then of course, like the whole time I was just like not worrying about the story or anything else going on. I was just like, oh, is Ignis okay? Are you okay? The whole time. And then we got to obviously going to have to find one of the royal arms, and you have to decide whether to take Ignis with you. And there's like a timer to choose which one. And I was freaking out because I felt so bad. I didn't want to bring him because I didn't want him to be hurt. Yes, by the way, I take this game very seriously when I play games. I didn't want to bring him because I didn't want, he's hurt. So, you know, you don't want to bring him on the quest to fight a boss or anything, even though it's just a game. But I also didn't want to not bring him because he was my favorite character. I like listening to what he had to say, and I was kind of intrigued of what he would be doing, that he's lost his eyesight, so how would he react to things. And also I just like having him in the party. So after screaming out loud to my screen, say, oh my god, what do I do, I chose to bring him. And instant regret. As soon as I start the quest, they non-stop are mentioning it, of course. But I just felt so bad, and I went to go back and load it because I felt that bad, and I couldn't find the save. So I was like, shit, what do I do? And then oh god, I just felt so bad. And then you just like, he's like, Gladio yells at you if you're going too fast, and I didn't know that I was walking that fast. So what I did, I stayed so close to him, and I felt like so bad. I was like, Noctis, why aren't you helping him up? But the whole time Noctis was like in that character. Obviously he's just lost Luna, he feels really bad, a lot of shit has happened, but his attitude kind of played it off to Gladio, I guess, as he didn't really care. He didn't want to take on the responsibilities of what has just happened. So I was playing as him, so that just felt so weird, but I really wanted to keep going to Ignis and helping him up, and then just walking really slow, but I couldn't. And then like having to watch Ignis fight, and then Noctis goes, he's like, you can just like stay back or something like that. And I was like, no. I felt so bad seeing like Gladio yelling at Noctis all the time. And I remember I accidentally like switched weapons. So I think, you know, when you switch weapons, they always comment on it because you are pulling out a sword or whatever, and could hit someone. So I think I did that, and then Gladio says something like, oh, like something to do with Ignis losing his sight, and it just made me feel so bad, and I froze, and I was like, Oh my god. Sorry, I'm talking a lot about this because this whole quest was made me so stressed, and I loved every single bit of it. Um, then after that, it was just crazy. That quest was just so crazy to me. But then I did like bringing him because he obviously at the end, when they defeated the boss, he kind of was the one who came up with how to defeat him. Um, and then uh, he kind of like stood up for himself, and told Noctis like he knows like if he can't take it, he'll stand out or something like that. And then he kind of brought the group back together, I guess, which was cool. So I didn't regret bringing him, but I did feel so bad the entire quest, and it took me so long because I actually was walking really slow so Ignis would keep up. Um, but yeah, I really love Ignis as a character. I like I like his backstory in the Brotherhood series because obviously I went and watched that. And oh, and remembered something. I love how much like he's like the mother of the group. So Gladio is like the father, and Ignis is like the mother. And there were so many times where like in cutscenes and that you would see him protecting Noctis or grabbing Noctis or things like that, and I'd just be like, oh, that's so sweet. So that's another reason why I love him. But as well as how much sorry, how much he wants to protect Noctis, and I'm really interested in seeing the DLC for Ignis, which comes out in December, because obviously we all want to know how he lost his eyesight, and I think out of the 3 DLCs, this would probably be the biggest, and I think yes, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happening. So I have to talk about Arden, who is the villain in the game. He was kind of mysterious at first. I mean, he kind of did give me those villain type of vibes, but he was kind of chill and kind of like, I don't know, he had this coolness to him, and it kind of seemed like he was helping Noctis along the way throughout the game, but he was helping himself more in the end, and he kind of got what he wanted. But he wasn't really a character when he showed up that I was just like, oh, I hate him. I hope he dies. Like I don't have that kind of feeling towards him. I thought he was, because he was so well written, you kind of felt sorry for him, I guess, and you kind of understood him, especially when you find out like who he really was. And I guess I don't know, he was just one of those villains that you sympathize with, even though you really shouldn't. But I think he was also really well voiced, and just the way he delivers his lines, and I don't know, he just has this coolness to him, and he could probably be one of my favorites in the game as well. I think that the likable villains, in a sense, are always turn out to be the best villains in games or movies. Another character I really liked was Aranea. Her entrance was so badass, and she is gorgeous. She is just so beautiful, and I like her attitude, and I loved her outfit so much. I was like, when I saw it, I was like, I really would love to cosplay that. The outfits are just stunning in this game. They're so stunning, and they're so detailed, and they're so colorful and bright and beautiful. So yeah, I really liked her, and I liked that she was included in some of the quests, and in the DLC for Prompto as well. So she was really cool. She's probably one of my favorite characters as well, even though we don't see her that much. I just liked her attitude and some of the things she had to say. Like, she had a lot of dialogue with Ignis, so obviously I ship them too. I also really love the chocobos. They are so cute, and I love that you can customize them and name them, because I named mine Solus, of course, and he was purple, and I had them all like different colors, but they were so cute. And Prompto's reactions to the chocobos and also the side quests in the game were really cool, and it was cool like seeing the companions, parties, reactions to side quests. I love always in games where there's like more detail, more banter to what you're doing, even if it's like small things like side quests, because sometimes side quests can feel really boring, and having like one of your companions or someone say something in relation to what they're doing, it always like brightens up the story. So that was the side quests were actually really fun, and the hunts were really fun as well, and the creatures were stunning and gorgeous. Every single one of them looked just amazing. I love like creatures in games. That sounds so weird, but like in Skyrim or Dragon Age or anything, like it's amazing how like they come up with these cool different variations of animals and insects and things like that. Every time I saw one, I was like, wow, that looks really, really cool. How did they come up with that? And it's so colorful and bright and sometimes pretty. Yeah, that was just a weird talk about how much I like the creatures in the game, but I think they looked really cool, and it kept like doing the hunts or the dungeons kind of interesting, because you never knew really what was going to be next, what creature or boss you're going to have to fight next, and every single one was always so interesting and beautiful, I think. Except for those damn tonberries. Hopefully that's what you call them. I mean, not that they're not beautiful, but I mean, they were so damn hard to fight. I was so stressed. Like every other creature was fine in those dungeons, but they were the hardest to defeat, and it took me so long. And they're part of the reason why I still haven't done the last secret dungeon, because I don't want to spend time having to defeat them. But they did look cute with their little knives. So probably my favorite part of, actually, wait, I feel really bad for saying this. Okay. Well, it's definitely the part that most affected me was the end of the game. So I've had already built these relationships with each character, and I loved them all, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea the direction of the game. I wasn't sure if everything was going to end happily. I kind of thought it would, because so much bad stuff had already happened. So I was like, okay, they have to all stay alive, right? Like, he can't go through all this and then die. But yeah, so you see, Noctis, he comes back 10 years later, so he's like all grown up, and then he comes back on the boat. I'm still kind of confused how he got on that island, but I guess that doesn't really matter. But he comes back, and you see, it's really cool because like you see how the world has changed. So there's no lights, so all the demons are out and everything's kind of been abandoned, and the demons are just everywhere. And also, this is weird, but they looked also gorgeous in the dark. I was just like looking at all the demons when you're like in the car driving to Hammerhead. But he meets up with Talcott. Hopefully I said that right. Which again, I'm really interested how he found him. Neither, maybe like maybe, I don't know, they were told that he was going to appear there all of a sudden 10 years later on that day. But anyway, so you see him all growing up, and then I remember my heart was like pounding. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna go see his friends again 10 years later. Like, what have they been up to? Are they okay? Are they still together? I was like worried about so many things. But you see them, he gets out of the truck, and then it's just like old times, and it just made me really emotional just to see, like, I don't know, how they are and how, I guess, lives affected them and how they've all kind of moved on and what they look like. And I still felt really bad for Ignis. But it's kind of like nothing's changed, but everything's changed, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but so they go to Insomnia to fight Arden. And the first time I did it, I was kind of too low leveled to fight the boss in front of the Citadel, I think it's called, or the yeah. So I had to go back with Umbra and just do a few more quests, and then I think I was at level 46. I don't know, but I couldn't do it. So I went back, did some more quests, learned more about the game because this was my first playthrough, and then I did it again. Went back forward in time. Sorry, is that right? Yeah. And then like it just went downhill from there. So he asked to have a photograph, which I thought was so beautiful, and I thought that was so sad, and I chose the one before they went to Altissa on the boat because I don't know, they were all just all together and smiling. I'm pretty sure that's what everyone chose. But secretly I wanted to choose a picture of Ignis because I have a lot of them, and I was like, how funny would it be if I chose that and he would just be looking back at a photo of Ignis. But anyway, I felt bad. I want to make like the nice choices in my first playthrough. So I chose that photo, and it was just, I think I was already crying by then because just like the music and how they're always so silent, and I just felt so bad, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I knew things were going to go wrong, but I didn't want them to go wrong. It's crazy how serious I take games. Anyway, I really liked when they walked into the throne room with all their cool outfits on, and I loved Noctis's line. He sees Arden is sitting up on the throne, and he says something like, "Get off my throne, Jester, the king sits there." That's probably one of my favorite lines, just because the way it's delivered, and he just seems so badass, and it shows how he's kind of grown into his role as king, and he's accepted his role as king, and you know how much he wants this, and he's willing to sacrifice this, and so is his friends. So I thought that was really cool, that line. And the other line, he says, I think he says something like, "I walked tall." And that's so emotional because it goes back to like when the father said to him, "Walk tall, my son," and that just brings a whole lot of feels. So it just is another awesome way of how Noctis kind of grew up, and you've seen him kind of having to take on the role as king and see how much he's changed. So he kind of says his final goodbye on the stairs, and I don't know. I just felt so bad, and like I didn't know if they were going to survive or not, because they turn around and then all the demons, and then he has to leave them, and then he had to die. And I was like sobbing by this point, especially because like his father had to like kill him, and it was all too emotional. And then you see Noctis saying, "It's finally over." And I'm like, what? No. And I was just going crazy because I was like really sad. And then the credits come on, and then you hear the boys talking, and then that's Stand By Me starts playing, and then things just get really, really emotional for me. And then you see like the photos playing, and it was all too much, and I was just really sad. But then you kind of saw the world, like the light coming back, so I'm guessing if people are still alive, then they're starting again. And then after that you see, of course, the wedding scene, which was really sweet and it made me so happy, and it was just beautiful as well. And also something that made me really sad was the scene with all of them at the campfire, and it was just, I don't know, it was just beautiful. And just seeing Prompto crying, and just seeing Noctis not being able to say what he wanted to say, but then he finally says it, and then he goes, "You guys are the best," and I'm like, great. So I was just crying the whole time actually. The whole ending of the game I was crying and I was like, holy shit, this was amazing. I have to play this game again. One of my favorite moments of the game, I don't know if you could include this because it wasn't in the main game, but it was the Assassin's Creed Festival special that they had on, because I am a huge fan of Assassin's Creed. It's one of my favorite games, and I can obviously relate to Noctis and Prompto fangirling about it. So when I saw that, it just made my fangirl heart so happy. And just seeing, because obviously Noctis and Prompto play video games in the game, so they treat it like it's a video game in a game. I don't know, but yeah, it just was so cool to see it in a different game, and like to see all the characters dressing up as previous assassins. That was so cool. I was just having a great time. I was just so happy to see like there being little games to do with the Assassin's Creed series. Obviously to see Noctis and Ignis and all of them dressing up in the Assassin's Creed Origins gear, that was pretty badass. And just to see them like talking about Assassin's Creed, it was just amazing, and I loved it so much. I love the quests. I love how they had those creepy, not really creepy, but funny side quests where they would like talk about the game and the Creed and it would just be like taken serious but also made fun of. Yeah, I loved it so much, so that was pretty cool. And I don't know, I'm just so happy that they included that, because I would never think that that would be in a game or like a game would have another game in it. I don't even know what I'm saying, but it makes sense, okay? Yeah, so that was probably my favorite part. I really, really enjoyed the Assassin's Creed special that they have on. So after the ending of the game and me being emotionally wrecked and heartbroken, I decided that I am doing it all over again. But before that, I went and researched everything about the game, things that I was confused about, and just the characters, their past, and I read up about every character because I wanted to know everything. I then watched Kingsglaive, which was really good. I really enjoyed that. And then I watched the animated series Brotherhood, which was really good as well, which kind of expands more on the four boys' backstories and what they've been through and how they met and things like that. Then I went and played the Gladio and Prompto DLCs, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and Prompto's was really emotional for me. And yeah, that's about it. That's what I wanted to talk about, because I really love this game. And if you haven't played it and you're for some reason still listening to this, and maybe this convinces you to play it, because it really is beautiful and you do get connected to the characters, and it kind of has inspired me creatively because the game is beautiful. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I have no idea what I sounded like. I probably sounded crazy, but I do take my gaming very seriously, and it makes me happy. So yeah, thank you for listening.